There is a moment in life that almost everyone experiences sooner or later. A moment when something you trusted suddenly collapses. Maybe it happens quietly. Maybe it happens all at once. One day everything seems normal. The next day, something changes. A relationship ends. A job disappears. A plan you spent years building suddenly falls apart. And in that moment, it feels as if the ground beneath your feet has shifted. You begin to question things you once felt certain about. Your direction, your confidence, even your own strength. Many people know this feeling. There was a man who once described the hardest moment of his life like this. He said that when he lost his job after more than a decade at the same company, the hardest part wasn't the financial stress. It wasn't even the uncertainty about what would happen next. The hardest part was the quiet voice that appeared in his mind late at night. The voice that asked a simple but painful question: what if I'm not strong enough to recover from this? If you've ever gone through a difficult season in your life, you probably understand exactly what that question feels like. Because when life breaks something important to us, it doesn't only affect our circumstances, it affects the way we see ourselves. Suddenly, the future becomes unclear, the path forward feels uncertain, and the mind, if we are not careful, begins to fill with doubt. But here is the truth most people eventually discover. Life breaking you and life defeating you are not the same thing. Every person who has ever achieved something meaningful has experienced moments where life hit them harder than expected. Moments where their plans collapsed. Moments where they felt lost. Moments where they wondered if they had the strength to continue. The difference is not that strong people avoid those moments. The difference is that they respond to them differently. Instead of allowing those experiences to define them, they begin to develop something powerful. They train their mind. You see, mental strength is rarely built during easy times. When life is comfortable and predictable, most people never develop the resilience they are capable of. But when things fall apart, when the situation becomes difficult, when the outcome becomes uncertain, that is when the mind is forced to adapt. That is when a person begins to discover strength they didn't know they had. The mind, just like the body, becomes stronger through resistance. And every challenge you face is shaping the way you think. Every obstacle is presenting a choice. You can allow the difficulty to convince you that you are weak, or you can use it as a reason to become stronger. Some people go through hardship and become bitter. Others go through hardship and become resilient. The difference lies in how they train their mind to interpret those experiences. They learn to control their thoughts when situations feel overwhelming. They learn to stay steady when circumstances become unstable. They learn that setbacks are not always the end of the story. Sometimes they are simply the beginning of a different path. And over time, something remarkable begins to happen. What once felt unbearable becomes manageable. What once felt impossible becomes a challenge they know they can face. That is how resilience is built. Slowly, quietly, through moments when continuing forward feels difficult, but a person chooses to keep going anyway. That is exactly what this audiobook is about. This is not about pretending that life will always be easy. It won't. Life will still test you. There will still be moments when things go wrong. There will still be times when you feel uncertain about the future. But what can change is the strength of the mind you bring into those moments. Over the next hour, we are going to explore how people develop the kind of mindset that allows them to endure life's hardest seasons. We will talk about why some individuals become stronger after failure. We will explore the habits and ways of thinking that build mental resilience. And most importantly, you will begin to understand how you can train your own mind to become steadier, stronger, techy, and far more resilient than you might imagine. Because the goal is not to create a life without challenges. The goal is to become the kind of person who cannot easily be broken by them. The kind of person who can rebuild after loss. The kind of person who can stand firm even when life becomes unpredictable. And if you are listening to this right now during a difficult moment, then this may be the beginning of something important. The moment when you start learning how to train your mind to become unbreakable when life tries to break you. Chapter 1. When life breaks. You without warning. Life rarely announces the moments that will change everything. Most of the time, it moves quietly and predictably. You wake up, go through your routine, handle your responsibilities, and assume that tomorrow will look more or less like today. There is a rhythm to everyday life that makes us feel safe. We build plans, we make commitments, we imagine where we will be a year from now, 5 years from now, maybe even 10. And then, sometimes without warning, something interrupts that rhythm. A message arrives that you never expected to read. A conversation happens that changes everything. A situation unfolds that you could not have predicted. In just a few minutes, the sense of stability you once relied on can disappear. For many people, this is the moment when life feels like it has suddenly turned against them. Not because they did something wrong, but because circumstances shifted in ways they could not control. Maybe you remember a moment like that in your own life. A moment when the future you imagined suddenly collapsed. Perhaps it was the end of a relationship you believed would last. Perhaps it was a career path you had spent years building, only to see it disappear almost overnight. Maybe it was a personal failure that made you question your abilities in ways you never had before. These experiences often leave a deep emotional impact, not only because of what happened, but because of the thoughts that follow afterward. When stability disappears, the mind begins searching for answers. You might find yourself replaying the situation again and again, not wondering what you could have done differently. You might question decisions that once seemed perfectly reasonable. And sometimes, without realizing it, you begin questioning something even deeper. You begin questioning yourself. Am I capable enough? Did I make the wrong choices? What if I can't recover from this? These questions can feel incredibly heavy. When life breaks something important to us, it does not only affect our circumstances, it affects the way we see our future and the way we see ourselves. But here is something worth understanding. Moments like these are not unusual. In fact, they are almost universal. If you look closely at the lives of people you admire, leaders, athletes, entrepreneurs, creators, you will often find a period where things did not go according to plan. There was a moment when they lost something valuable, and a moment when their path forward suddenly became unclear. Yet when we hear their stories later, those difficult moments often appear as turning points. At the time, however, they did not feel like turning points. They felt like endings. There was once a young professional who spent nearly a decade working for the same company. He was reliable, hardworking, and committed to his career. Over the years, he believed he was slowly building a stable life. Promotions came gradually. Responsibilities increased. Everything seemed to be moving in the right direction. Then one afternoon, the company announced major changes. Departments were reorganized. Entire teams were removed. Within days, employees who had spent years building their careers there were suddenly told that their positions no longer existed. And he walked out of the building carrying a small box filled with personal items from his desk. The routine he had followed for nearly 10 years was over. At first, he tried to stay optimistic. He told himself that something else would appear soon. But as the weeks passed, uncertainty began to grow. Late at night, when everything was quiet, his thoughts became louder. Had he built his life around something fragile? Had he wasted years moving in the wrong direction? Would he ever find another opportunity like the one he had lost? Those were the moments when life felt like it was breaking him, not physically, but mentally. And this is something that many people experience at some point in their lives. Life does not always break us through dramatic disasters. Sometimes it breaks us through quiet disruptions that slowly shake our sense of security. The problem is not the difficulty itself, The real challenge lies in how the mind reacts to it. When uncertainty appears, the human mind naturally tries to protect itself. It begins searching for explanations, often focusing on fear and worst-case scenarios. This reaction is completely normal, but if it continues for too long, it can trap a person in a cycle of doubt. They begin believing that the setback defines their future, but the truth is far more complicated and far more hopeful. A difficult moment may interrupt your plans, but it does not automatically determine the outcome of your life. What truly matters is how you respond after the disruption. Some people allow the experience to convince them that they are powerless. They remain stuck in the story of what went wrong. Others eventually begin asking a different question. Instead of asking why life became unfair, they start asking what they can build next. That small shift marks the beginning of mental resilience. It does not erase the pain of what happened. It does not immediately solve every problem. But it opens a door. Because the moment you stop seeing yourself as a victim of circumstances, you begin reclaiming control over your future. And that is the first step toward becoming mentally unbreakable. Life may still break your plans. It may break your expectations. Sometimes it may even break your confidence for a while. But it does not have to break the person you are becoming. In fact, the very moments that feel like the end of something stable often become the beginning of something far stronger. They force you to develop a deeper kind of strength. A strength that does not depend on everything going smoothly. A strength that grows when things fall apart. And learning how to build that kind of strength is exactly where the journey begins. Chapter 2. The truth about pain nobody talks about. One of the most surprising lessons people eventually learn in life is this. Pain is not the exception. Pain is part of the process. Yet for most of our lives, we are taught to believe the opposite. We grow up thinking that if we work hard enough, plan carefully enough, and make the right decisions, life will become stable and predictable. We imagine a future where everything finally falls into place. But reality rarely unfolds that way. Even the most disciplined, intelligent, and determined people eventually encounter periods of difficulty. Plans collapse, expectations fail, circumstances change in ways no one could have predicted. And when those moments arrive, they often bring a kind of emotional weight that feels overwhelming. Not because the problem itself is always impossible to solve, but because pain has a powerful effect on the human mind. When something hurts deeply, whether it is failure, loss, rejection, or disappointment, the brain naturally tries to protect itself. It searches for explanations. It replays events. It looks for meaning in what happened. Sometimes this process leads to growth, but other times it leads to a cycle that quietly traps people in their own thoughts. They replay the same questions again and again. Why did this happen? Why now? Why me? The problem with these questions is not that they are unreasonable. They are completely natural responses to pain. The problem is that they often keep a person focused on the past rather than the future. And when the mind becomes trapped in that cycle, something important begins to fade. A sense of direction. Without realizing it, many people spend months or even years mentally replaying moments they cannot change. They analyze every detail of what went wrong. They imagine alternative outcomes. They wonder what their life might look like if that one moment had unfolded differently. But the truth is that pain rarely gives us the answers we want. Instead, it gives us a choice between remaining trapped in the story of what happened or slowly shifting our focus toward what can happen next. This shift is not easy. In fact, it is one of the most difficult mental transitions a person can make. Because pain has a way of convincing us that we are stuck. There was once a woman who spent nearly 15 years building her career in a company she believed would be her long-term future. She worked hard, and she developed strong relationships with colleagues. She believed she had finally found a place where her efforts were valued. Then one morning, everything changed. The company announced a sudden restructuring. Entire teams were eliminated as part of a cost-cutting decision. Within a few weeks, she found herself walking away from the building where she had spent more than a decade of her life. At first, she assumed she would quickly find another opportunity. But the job market was difficult, and weeks turned into months. With each passing day, uncertainty began to grow. Late at night, when everything was quiet, her thoughts became heavier. Had she wasted years investing in something that could disappear so easily? Had she overestimated her abilities? Would she ever rebuild the stability she once had? For a long time, these questions filled her mind. But one day, during a conversation with a friend, she heard something that slowly changed the way she looked at her situation. Her friend said something simple. Maybe this isn't the end of your story. Maybe this is the moment where a different one begins. At first, the idea sounded almost unrealistic, but over time, she began to understand what those words meant. The experience that once felt like a collapse was also forcing her to reconsider possibilities she had never explored before. Opportunities she had once ignored, skills she had never developed, paths she had never considered. Pain has a strange ability to do that. It interrupts the routine we become comfortable with. It pushes us out of environments that once felt secure. And while that disruption can feel terrifying at first, it also creates space for change. Many people who later build meaningful lives can trace their growth back to moments that initially felt like devastating setbacks. The loss of a job that eventually led them to a better career. The end of a relationship that forced them to understand themselves more deeply. The failure of a plan that opened the door to a completely different opportunity. None of those moments felt positive at the time. In fact, they often felt like the lowest point in a person's life. But those moments also carried something important. They forced individuals to develop resilience. Resilience is not the absence of pain. It is the ability to continue moving forward even when pain exists. It is the willingness to face uncertainty rather than avoid it. It is the quiet decision to keep building a future even after the past did not unfold the way we expected. And this is the truth about pain that very few people talk about. Pain does not automatically destroy you, but it does challenge you to grow. It asks whether you will allow the experience to close your future, or whether you will use it as the beginning of a new chapter. Because the same moment that breaks one person can become the moment that strengthens another. The difference lies in how the mind learns to respond, and learning how to shape that response is one of the most powerful skills a person can develop. It is the beginning of training the mind to remain strong, even when life becomes difficult. And it is exactly what we will continue exploring in the chapters ahead. Chapter 3. The moment you stop waiting to be saved. At some point in life, many people discover a difficult truth. Not because someone teaches it to them, but because life eventually makes it impossible to ignore. It is the moment when you realize that no one is coming to rescue you. This realization does not mean that people do not care about you. Friends may offer support. Family may offer encouragement. Some people may even offer advice. But when it comes to the most important battles in your life, there is a point where the responsibility becomes yours alone. No one can think for you. No one can rebuild your confidence for you. No one can take the steps forward that only you can take. For many people, this realization begins during a period when life feels uncertain. Maybe a plan has collapsed. Maybe a failure has shaken your confidence. Maybe you have reached a moment where the direction you once trusted no longer feels clear. In the beginning, the natural reaction is often to look outward. You wait for someone to provide answers. You hope someone will offer the solution that fixes everything. You imagine that if the right opportunity appears, everything will suddenly return to normal. But sometimes that moment never arrives, and slowly something begins to shift inside your mind. You start to understand that waiting is not going to change the situation. There was once a young athlete whose entire identity revolved around his sport. For most of his life, he had trained every day. His routine was built around improvement, discipline, and the belief that one day he would reach the highest level of competition. Then one afternoon, during a routine training session, something unexpected happened. He landed awkwardly during a jump. Within seconds, he knew something was wrong. The injury was serious. Doctors later confirmed what he feared most. Recovery would be long, and there was a real possibility that he might never compete at the same level again. For weeks, he struggled to accept the situation. His mind was filled with frustration and disbelief. Why had this happened now? Why after so many years of work? Why when he was finally getting close to his goal? During that time, he spent many days hoping someone would give him an answer that made everything feel normal again. But no answer came. Eventually, he realized something that changed his perspective. No one could change what had happened. No one could go back and erase the injury. No one could rebuild his future except him. That realization was painful, but it was also empowering. Because once he stopped waiting for someone else to solve the situation, he began focusing on what he could control. He focused on recovery. He focused on strengthening the parts of his body that could still improve. He focused on developing mental discipline that he had never taken seriously before. Over time, something interesting happened. Even though the injury had once felt like the end of everything he had worked for, it slowly became the reason he developed a level of mental resilience he never had before. He learned how to face uncertainty without panic. He learned how to move forward without guarantees. And most importantly, he learned how to rely on his own mindset rather than circumstances. This lesson applies far beyond sports. In many areas of life, people wait for a moment that will fix everything. They wait for confidence to magically appear. They wait for motivation to return. They wait for the perfect opportunity to begin again. But the truth is that progress rarely begins with certainty. It usually begins with a decision to move forward even when the outcome is unclear. A decision to take responsibility for your future rather than waiting for someone else to guide it. When that decision is made, something powerful begins to happen. Your attention shifts away from what you cannot control and toward what you can influence. Instead of asking why life has become difficult, you begin asking what action you can take next. That shift may seem small, but it changes everything. Because every step forward, even a small one, creates momentum. Momentum builds confidence. Confidence builds resilience, and resilience gradually builds the kind of mindset that can handle challenges without collapsing. This is the moment when a person begins to develop true inner strength. Not because life suddenly becomes easy, but because they stop waiting for the world to become perfect before they take action. They understand that uncertainty will always exist. Challenges will always appear. Unexpected events will always interrupt carefully built plans. But none of those things remove the ability to move forward. Once you understand that your life is ultimately your responsibility, you stop searching for someone to save you. Instead, you begin building the mindset that allows you to save yourself. And that mindset is one of the most powerful tools a person can develop. Because when you truly stop waiting to be rescued, you begin discovering something that was always within your reach. The strength to rebuild your own path. Chapter 4. Why some people grow stronger. After failure. Failure has a strange reputation in our culture. Most people are taught to fear it. From a young age, we are encouraged to avoid mistakes, avoid embarrassment, and avoid situations where we might fall short of expectations. Success is celebrated, while failure is often treated as something shameful, something that proves a person was not capable enough. But if you look closely at the lives of people who eventually become strong, resilient, and successful, you will often find that failure played a very different role in their story. For many of them, failure was not the end. It was the beginning of something important. The reality is that two people can go through the exact same setback and come out with completely different results. One person may become discouraged and withdraw from new opportunities. The other may come out of the experience stronger, wiser, and more determined than before. The difference is rarely about intelligence, talent, or luck. The difference usually comes down to one thing: how the mind interprets failure. When something goes wrong, the human brain naturally searches for meaning. It tries to answer a question that feels deeply personal. What does this say about me? If someone believes that failure proves they are incapable, they begin to lose confidence. Every setback feels like confirmation that they are not good enough. But if someone views failure differently, if they see it as information rather than judgment, the same experience can lead to growth. Instead of asking, "What's wrong with me?" they begin asking a more useful question: "What can I learn from this?" This simple shift transforms failure from a personal attack into a source of knowledge. There was once a small business owner who spent several years building a company that he believed would support his future. He invested time, energy, and savings into making the business succeed. For a while, things looked promising. Customers began to appear. Revenue slowly increased. The future seemed stable. Then unexpected problems began to appear. Costs increased. Competition became stronger. A few critical decisions turned out to be mistakes. Within 2 years, the business collapsed. At first, the experience felt devastating. He had lost money, time, and confidence. Friends and family tried to comfort him, but internally he felt like he had failed completely. For several months, he avoided thinking about the experience. The idea of starting again felt impossible. But over time, something began to change. Instead of trying to forget what had happened, he began studying it. He looked carefully at every decision that had led to the collapse of his company. At first, the process was uncomfortable. Every mistake reminded him of the frustration he had experienced. But as he continued examining the situation, he began noticing something interesting. The failure had taught him lessons he had never learned before. He understood financial planning more deeply. He recognized the importance of building stronger systems rather than relying on short-term solutions. He began seeing patterns in the decisions that had once felt random. Years later, when he started another company, those lessons became the foundation of a far more stable business. What once felt like the worst experience of his life had quietly become one of the most valuable. This pattern appears again and again in the stories of resilient individuals. Athletes who lose important competitions often return stronger because they understand their weaknesses more clearly. Entrepreneurs who experience business failure often build better companies the second time because they have already faced the realities of risk. Writers whose work is rejected repeatedly often develop sharper skills and stronger discipline because they refuse to stop improving. Failure, in many cases, forces a level of reflection that success never demands. When things go well, people rarely question their habits or assumptions. But when things fall apart, the mind begins to search for deeper understanding. This is where growth becomes possible. However, this transformation does not happen automatically. Failure only becomes valuable when a person is willing to learn from it. If someone chooses to see failure only as proof of weakness, they miss the opportunity hidden within the experience. But if they choose to examine the experience honestly, they gain something powerful. Clarity. They begin to understand their strengths and weaknesses more clearly. They recognize patterns in their decisions. They see opportunities to improve in ways that were invisible before. Over time, this process builds resilience. Not the kind of resilience that avoids mistakes, but the kind that grows stronger because of them. And that kind of resilience is incredibly difficult to break. Because once a person understands that failure is not the end of the story, fear begins to lose its control. Challenges no longer feel like threats to identity. They feel like opportunities to grow. This shift in mindset is one of the most important steps toward becoming mentally unbreakable. Life will still present difficulties. Plans will still collapse from time to time. But when failure becomes a teacher rather than an enemy, those moments stop defining the limits of what is possible. Instead, they become the training ground where strength is built. And the people who learn to use failure in that way eventually discover something remarkable. The experiences that once seemed like they would destroy their confidence become the very experiences that make them stronger than they were before. Chapter 5. Training your mind for difficult days. There is a moment that eventually comes in every person's life. A moment when you realize that strength is not something you can simply wait for. You have to build it. Just like the body becomes stronger through physical training, the mind becomes stronger through practice. But unlike physical training, mental strength is rarely taught in a clear way. Most people only begin developing it when life forces them to. When things go wrong, when uncertainty appears, when the path forward is no longer obvious. During those moments, the mind is placed under pressure, and pressure reveals something important. It shows whether a person has trained their mind to stay steady, or whether their thoughts immediately spiral into fear and doubt. This is why learning how to train your mind before the next difficult moment arrives can change everything. Mental strength does not appear overnight. It develops slowly through small, consistent habits that shape the way you respond to challenges. The first practice begins with something very simple: learning how to pause. When life suddenly becomes stressful, the natural reaction for most people is immediate emotion. Frustration appears quickly. Anxiety begins to grow. The mind starts imagining the worst possible outcomes. But people who develop mental discipline eventually learn to interrupt that pattern. Instead of reacting instantly, they pause. They take a breath. They create a small space between the event and their reaction. This space is incredibly powerful, because within that pause, the mind has time to regain clarity. Instead of allowing emotion to control the situation, a person can begin thinking more carefully about what actually needs to be done. Many problems become far less overwhelming when they are approached calmly rather than emotionally. The second practice involves something even more subtle. It involves the way you speak to yourself. Every person carries an internal voice that narrates their experiences. When something goes wrong, that voice often becomes critical. It says things like, "This always happens to me. I'm not good at this. I'll probably fail again." Over time, these thoughts shape the way the brain interprets reality. If someone constantly repeats messages of doubt, the mind begins to accept those messages as truth. But the internal voice can also be trained. Instead of reinforcing fear, it can begin asking better questions. What can I learn from this situation? What is one step I can take today? What part of this challenge is within my control? These questions shift the mind away from helplessness and toward action. Even small actions create momentum, and momentum has a powerful psychological effect. It reminds the brain that progress is still possible. The third practice that builds mental strength is the willingness to experience small forms of discomfort regularly. Many people avoid discomfort whenever possible. They stay within familiar routines, familiar environments, and familiar habits. While comfort can feel pleasant, it rarely builds resilience. Resilience grows when a person willingly faces small challenges on a regular basis. Waking up earlier than necessary to exercise. Completing difficult tasks even when motivation is low. Learning a new skill that requires patience and effort. These small moments of discipline train the brain to handle pressure more effectively. Each time you push through a challenge, even a small one, your mind learns something important. It learns that discomfort is not dangerous. It learns that effort leads to improvement, and slowly, the fear of difficulty begins to shrink. This is how strong minds are built, not through dramatic moments of inspiration, but through repeated acts of discipline that strengthen mental endurance. Over time, these practices begin to reshape the way a person responds to life. Challenges that once caused panic begin to feel manageable. Situations that once created doubt begin to feel like opportunities for growth. But confidence begins to grow, not because life has become easier, but because the mind has become stronger. This transformation is subtle at first. You may not notice it immediately. But one day, you will face a situation that once would have overwhelmed you. And instead of collapsing under the pressure, you will respond differently. You will pause. You will think clearly. You will focus on the next step rather than the entire problem. And in that moment, you will realize something important. Your mind has changed. It has become steadier, stronger, more resilient than before. That is the power of training your mind. Because life will always contain difficult days. There will always be unexpected setbacks, uncertain moments, and challenges that test your patience and strength. But when your mind has been trained to handle those moments, something remarkable happens. The challenges that once felt like they could break you begin to feel like something you can face. And with every challenge you overcome, your confidence grows stronger. Not the fragile confidence that depends on perfect circumstances, but a deeper confidence built on experience. The kind that comes from knowing that no matter what happens next, you have the mental strength to continue moving forward. Chapter 6. The Strength of Standing Alone. There comes a stage in many people's lives that feels unusually quiet. It is a period where the noise of the world seems to fade, and for a while, you feel as though you are walking through life mostly on your own. This stage can feel uncomfortable at first. Human beings are naturally drawn toward connection. We want support. We want encouragement. We want reassurance that the path we are walking makes sense. But there are certain moments in life where those things become less available. Not because people suddenly disappear, but because the challenges you are facing are deeply personal. No one else can fully understand what is happening inside your mind. During these periods, it may feel as if you are carrying your thoughts, doubts, and responsibilities alone. Many people interpret this stage as a sign that something is wrong. They begin to believe that they are isolated or falling behind. But for many strong individuals, this quiet stage is actually where their inner strength begins to grow. Because when external support becomes limited, something important happens. You begin to rely on yourself in ways you never had before. There was once a young writer who dreamed of publishing a book that could reach readers around the world. For years, he spent his evenings writing after finishing his regular job. Most days, the work felt slow and uncertain. Friends did not fully understand why he spent so much time on something that might never succeed. Some even suggested that he should focus on more realistic goals. Over time, the excitement he once felt began to fade. Doubt slowly replaced it. Was the effort worth it? Was he chasing something unrealistic? Some nights he considered giving up completely, but something inside him refused to quit. Even when no one was encouraging him, even when progress felt painfully slow, he continued showing up, page after page, day after day, year after year. For a long time, the work felt invisible. No audience, no recognition, no guarantees, just quiet effort. But that quiet effort was doing something powerful behind the scenes. It was strengthening his discipline. It was teaching him patience. It was building the mental endurance required to keep moving forward without constant validation. Eventually, after years of persistence, the work began to reach people. But by that point, something even more important had already happened. He had developed the ability to rely on himself. This ability, is one of the most powerful forms of strength a person can possess. Because when you learn how to stand alone during uncertain periods, you stop depending entirely on external approval. Your motivation no longer disappears when people doubt you. Your confidence no longer collapses when progress is slow. Instead, you develop an internal stability that remains steady even when circumstances fluctuate. This does not mean you stop valuing relationships or support. Healthy connections will always be important. But your sense of direction no longer depends entirely on them. You begin trusting your own judgment. You begin trusting your own ability to adapt. You begin trusting that even if the path becomes difficult, you will find a way forward. Many people who eventually achieve meaningful success describe periods of their lives where they felt alone in their efforts. Entrepreneurs working on ideas that others did not yet understand. Athletes training long hours before anyone recognized their dedication. Artists creating work for years before anyone noticed their talent. During those periods, external rewards were minimal, but internally, something powerful was developing. Resilience. Resilience is strengthened in moments when quitting would be easy, but continuing feels important. It grows when a person chooses discipline over comfort. It grows when effort continues, even when immediate results are not visible. And over time, resilience creates something incredibly valuable. Self-trust. Self-trust means knowing that you can handle challenges even if no one else is guiding you. It means believing that you can rebuild if something collapses. It means understanding that your progress does not always need to be visible for it to be real. Life will sometimes place you in seasons where the path feels quiet and uncertain. These seasons may feel lonely at first, but they are often the periods where the strongest parts of your character are formed. When you learn to stand alone for a while, you discover that your strength does not come from perfect circumstances. It comes from the ability to keep moving forward regardless of them. And once you develop that kind of inner stability, something remarkable happens. The world around you may still change. Opportunities may still appear and disappear. People may come and go, but your sense of direction remains steady because you have learned something powerful. Even when the path becomes uncertain, you have the strength to continue walking it. Chapter 7. Rebuilding strength without rushing the future. There comes a quiet moment after a long period of chaos. Not when everything is fixed, not when life suddenly becomes easy again, but when you notice something small, something almost invisible. You wake up one morning and the weight in your chest is just a little lighter. You breathe a little deeper. You feel a little more stable. Nothing dramatic has changed in the outside world. The problems might still be there. The uncertainty might still exist. But inside you, something important has shifted. You are no longer panicking. And that moment, when panic begins to fade, is where real rebuilding begins. Most people believe rebuilding your life requires dramatic action. New goals, big decisions, massive motivation. But that belief is exactly what traps people after difficult periods, because when you try to rebuild too fast, you recreate the same pressure that broke you in the first place. The truth is much quieter than that. Real strength returns slowly, and it returns through stability, not urgency. When life breaks you, your nervous system goes into survival mode. Your brain is constantly scanning for threats. Every decision feels heavy. Every mistake feels catastrophic. And because of this, your instinct becomes extreme. You want to fix everything immediately. You want to catch up on lost time. You want to rebuild your life overnight. But the nervous system does not heal through pressure. It heals through safety and repetition. Which means rebuilding strength is not about speed. It is about consistency. And think about someone recovering from a serious injury. No doctor tells them to run a marathon the moment they leave the hospital. Instead, recovery starts with something simple: standing, then walking, then slowly increasing strength over time. Your psychological recovery works the same way. After emotional collapse, burnout, or major life disruption, the goal is not to sprint back into ambition. The goal is to rebuild capacity. Capacity to think clearly. Capacity to make decisions. Capacity to carry responsibility again. And that capacity returns through small, steady actions repeated every day. This is why the strongest people after adversity are rarely the ones who rush. They are the ones who move quietly. They simplify their lives. They remove unnecessary chaos. They focus on stability before expansion. You see it in their routines. If they wake up at a consistent time, they take care of their physical health. They create small daily goals instead of overwhelming ones. From the outside, their progress looks slow. But internally, something powerful is happening. Their nervous system is learning that life is safe again. Their mind is regaining clarity. Their identity is stabilizing, and that stability creates a new kind of strength. Not the loud strength of ambition, but the quiet strength of resilience. This kind of strength changes the way you approach the future. Instead of forcing life to move faster, you begin allowing life to unfold. Instead of reacting emotionally to every setback, you respond calmly. Instead of chasing validation, you focus on alignment. Because once you've been broken by life, something interesting happens. Your definition of success evolves. Before difficult experiences, success often means achievement, recognition, progress, momentum. But after surviving collapse, success begins to mean something different. Peace, clarity, stability. You begin valuing mornings that feel calm, days that feel balanced, conversations that feel genuine. And strangely enough, this shift often leads to better outcomes than the old mindset ever produced. Because when you are calm, you think more clearly. When you are stable, you make better decisions. When you are patient, you avoid unnecessary mistakes. This is why people who rebuild slowly often end up building stronger lives than they had before. They are no longer reacting to fear. They are building from awareness. And awareness creates intentional action. You start noticing patterns. What drains your energy? What restores it? Or what environments make you stronger? What people support your growth? Instead of blindly chasing opportunity, you begin choosing carefully. Your life becomes less chaotic. Your focus becomes sharper. Your confidence becomes quieter, but deeper. And eventually, something remarkable happens. You stop thinking of yourself as someone who is broken. You start thinking of yourself as someone who survived. That shift in identity is subtle, but it changes everything. Because once you see yourself as resilient, the future stops feeling threatening. You know that even if life becomes difficult again, and at some point it will, you have the ability to endure it. You've already done it once. This realization creates a calm kind of courage, not reckless optimism, but grounded confidence. You no longer need life to be perfect in order to feel stable. You know that stability lives inside you, and from that place, rebuilding becomes less about fixing the past and more about shaping the future. Slowly, deliberately, patiently. Strength does not return all at once. It returns through quiet mornings, small routines, honest reflection, steady movement forward. And when you respect that process instead of rushing it, something powerful emerges. Not just recovery, but transformation. Because the person you become after rebuilding carefully is often wiser, calmer, and stronger than the person you were before everything fell apart. And that is the hidden truth most people never realize. Sometimes, life breaking you is not the end of your strength. Sometimes it is the beginning of a stronger version of you that could not exist any other way. Chapter 8. Becoming the person who can handle the future. There is a quiet realization that comes after you have survived enough difficult seasons. It doesn't arrive dramatically. There are no fireworks, no sudden moment where life announces that you are finally strong. Instead, it arrives quietly. almost unnoticed. You begin responding differently to things that once would have overwhelmed you. Bad news no longer feels like the end of the world. Unexpected problems no longer send your mind spiraling into panic. Uncertainty no longer paralyzes you the way it once did. And when this shift happens, something important has already changed inside you. You have started becoming the person who can handle the future. Most people think strength comes from avoiding hardship, but the opposite is usually true. Strength is built through exposure, through moments when life forces you into situations you never wanted, through experiences where you had no choice but to adapt. At the time, those experiences feel unbearable. They feel unfair. You might even believe they are breaking you, but what they are actually doing is expanding your capacity. Before hardship, your mind has a limited understanding of what it can endure. A small setback can feel catastrophic. A single failure can feel like proof that everything is falling apart. But after you have lived through true difficulty, loss, collapse, uncertainty, emotional exhaustion, your internal scale changes. You begin realizing something powerful. You are far more resilient than you once believed. This realization does not make life painless. Challenges will still exist. Unexpected events will still happen. People will still disappoint you. Plans will still fall apart. But the difference now is that these things no longer define you. You understand that hardship is part of life's rhythm. Every life contains cycles, growth and loss, momentum and stillness, clarity and confusion. Trying to avoid these cycles is what creates suffering, but learning to move through them creates strength. This is why the strongest individuals are rarely the ones who have perfect lives. They are often the ones who have seen chaos up close, the ones who have experienced failure, the ones who have walked through seasons where nothing felt certain. Because those experiences teach something that success alone cannot teach. They teach emotional endurance. When life becomes unpredictable, endurance matters more than intelligence, more than talent, more than ambition. Endurance allows you to stay steady while others collapse under pressure. It allows you to keep thinking clearly when situations become complicated. It allows you to remain patient when progress feels slow. And patience is one of the most underestimated strengths in modern life. We live in a world that glorifies speed, instant success, rapid transformation, overnight breakthroughs, but real life rarely works that way. Real growth unfolds gradually. Skills develop slowly. Wisdom deepens over time. The people who ultimately build stable, meaningful lives are not the ones who rush. They are the ones who remain steady long enough for the long process of growth to unfold. And that steadiness becomes easier after you have survived difficult chapters. Because hardship teaches you an important lesson. You learn that panic never improves outcomes. Panic clouds judgment. It leads to impulsive decisions. It pushes you toward actions driven by fear rather than clarity. But calm thinking creates space. Space to evaluate situations. Space to consider options. Space to respond wisely rather than react emotionally. This is why emotional regulation becomes one of the most powerful skills you can develop. When something goes wrong, your first reaction matters. Do you spiral into worst-case scenarios? Do you immediately assume everything is collapsing? Or do you pause? Do you breathe? Do you give your mind time to process reality before reacting? The people who learn this skill become incredibly resilient, not because life becomes easier for them, but because they become better at navigating difficulty. They understand that problems are rarely as permanent as they initially appear. Situations evolve, opportunities emerge, new paths reveal themselves over time, but those possibilities only become visible when your mind remains calm enough to notice them. And calmness is not something you are born with. It is something developed through experience, through challenges that forced you to slow down, through mistakes that taught you patience, through seasons where life demanded endurance instead of speed. Eventually, these experiences reshape your identity. You stop seeing yourself as someone fragile. You stop believing that one mistake can destroy everything. You stop assuming that uncertainty means failure. Instead, you begin trusting your ability to adapt. You trust that even if the future becomes difficult again, you will find a way through it. That trust changes the way you move through life. You take thoughtful risks instead of reckless ones. You choose environments that support your growth. You become selective about what deserves your energy. And perhaps most importantly, you stop measuring your worth based on constant progress. You begin understanding that life is not a straight line. There will be pauses, detours, moments when things slow down or even appear to move backward. But those moments are not failures. They are part of the process of becoming someone stronger, someone wiser, someone capable of handling a complex and unpredictable world. And the most powerful part of this transformation is that it happens quietly. While the world is busy chasing constant momentum, you are building something deeper: inner stability, mental clarity, emotional endurance. These qualities rarely attract attention, but they create a foundation that lasts. Because when the future inevitably brings new challenges, and it always does, the person you have become will be ready. Not because you have control over everything, but because you have learned how to remain steady when control disappears. And that is the real definition of strength. Not a life without difficulty, but the ability to face whatever comes next with calm, clarity, and the quiet confidence that you will handle it, one step at a time. If there is one truth that quietly runs through everything you've heard in this audiobook, it is this: life will break you at some point. Not because you are weak, not because you made the wrong choices, and not because something is wrong with you, but because that is simply part of being human. Every person you admire has lived through moments where life knocked them down harder than they expected. Moments where plans collapsed, where certainty disappeared, and where they questioned whether they had the strength to continue. The difference between those who remain broken and those who eventually rise again is not luck. It is not intelligence. It is not talent. The difference is something far quieter. It is the decision, sometimes made in the darkest moment, to stand back up again. And if you are listening to this right now, there is a good chance that part of your story includes moments like that. Moments where life surprised you with difficulty. Moments where you felt alone with your struggles. Moments where you wondered if anyone truly understood what you were carrying inside. If that has been part of your experience, then understand something important. You are not behind in life. You are not failing. You are simply in the middle of becoming stronger. The truth is that no one becomes mentally unbreakable without first experiencing the feeling of being broken. Strength is not developed in easy seasons. It is built slowly during the difficult ones. Every time you kept going when things were uncertain. Every time you faced disappointment and continued forward. Every time you chose patience instead of giving up. You were training your mind, even if you didn't realize it at the time. The title of this audiobook is not about becoming a person who never feels pain. It is about becoming someone who knows how to move through pain without letting it define your future. And that transformation begins with a simple but powerful shift in how you approach difficult moments. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" you begin asking a different question. What is this moment teaching me about my strength? Because hidden inside every challenge is a lesson about your own resilience. Sometimes that lesson is patience. Sometimes it is courage. Sometimes it is learning to let go of what no longer belongs in your life. But every challenge has something to teach. And when you begin viewing hardship through this lens, your relationship with difficulty changes. You stop seeing it purely as an obstacle. You begin recognizing it as training. Training for the future version of yourself that is still being built. So as you leave this audiobook and return to your daily life, remember that the ideas you've heard here only become powerful when they are practiced. Mental strength is not something that appears overnight. It grows through small, consistent actions, through moments where you choose calm instead of panic, where you choose patience instead of frustration, where you remind yourself that one difficult day does not define your entire life. When setbacks happen, and they will, pause before reacting. Take a breath. Ask yourself what the situation is really asking of you. More patience, more courage, more discipline? Often the answer is simpler than it first appears. And the more often you practice responding with clarity instead of fear, the stronger your mind becomes. Slowly, almost invisibly, your resilience grows. Until one day you realize something has changed. Situations that once would have overwhelmed you now feel manageable. Uncertainty no longer terrifies you the way it once did. You begin trusting yourself, trusting your ability to navigate whatever life places in front of you. That trust is the foundation of an unbreakable mindset. Not the belief that life will always be easy, but the quiet confidence that you can handle whatever comes next. And perhaps the most important thing to remember is this: you do not have to become perfect. No one is. Every person you meet is carrying invisible challenges. Every person is learning, adjusting, some growing through their own version of life's difficulties. The goal is not perfection. The goal is progress. To become just a little stronger, a little calmer, and a little wiser with each passing season. If this audiobook helped you reflect on your own journey, take a moment today to acknowledge how far you have already come. Even if your path has been messy, even if it has included mistakes, even if there were times when you doubted yourself, you are still here, you are still moving forward. And that alone is proof of strength. Thank you for spending this time here, reflecting on these ideas and investing in your own growth. If these thoughts resonated with you, consider revisiting them from time to time. The most powerful ideas often reveal deeper meaning each time we return to them, and remember this as you continue your journey. Life may break you at times, but the mind you build can always rise again. Stay steady, stay patient, and keep moving forward. Your strongest chapter may still be ahead of you.